Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly live room at binary.com. So glad that you could join us today. Oh, I still see I have the old time starting at 7 a.m. It's actually 8 a.m. from now on. I'll just change that for next time. We're going to be starting 1 hour later than usual, and we'll keep it that way at 8 a.m. from now on. So glad that you could join us. Once again, hosted by binary.com. My name is Chris, and we're going to take a look at the majors today on the Forex market and gold as well. But before we do that, as always, this risk disclaimer explaining that trading for exchange and global financial markets is considered high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational purposes only. So thanks for your attention on that. As always, just in case you're not aware, take a look at this blog.binary.com/weekly trading room. And if you're not able to make this event live or watch it live, then you can get an email when the recording is ready and watch it at your convenience. So only a name and email address is needed. Once again, this is live though at 8 a.m. if you wanted to every Monday. Today's goal, we're going to take a look at the calendar and then take a look at the following currencies: euro dollar, pound dollar, dollar yen, AUD USD, and also XAU USD. All right, with that said, let's move over to that Forex calendar first of all and see if there's any substantial news that could be in the market this week that could affect trading and trading decisions, etc. We got monetary policy meetings, meeting minutes, in fact, on the AUD USD, so that's something to be aware of. If the Aussie, may be a bit more careful today. Otherwise, tomorrow, Fed Chairman Bernanke speaking. Wednesday, we have the pound news, in fact, big pound news. And also in the evening, we have FOMC meeting minutes, which is a big thing for the dollar on Wednesday evening. So quite a heavy week maybe this week. And the Bank of Japan press conference on Thursday. Alrighty, that wraps up the news. Be aware of those events. Those could definitely significantly impact the currency. Let's move over to the charts, of course. And let's start with the weekly chart. Let me take off these lines here. And what I want to show you, in fact, is this euro dollar weekly candle right here, which was bullish last week. So we did have a upside candle, although on the lower time frames we saw that this upside was pretty corrective, which means slow to the upside. In total, the entire week last week was pretty bullish, and we had a close of that weekly candle near the high, which means that the bullish tendency remained in control throughout the week. Because if there would be a big wick, then obviously during that week there was a bigger sell-off as well. That didn't happen, and that means that generally speaking, this is usually a bullish signal for some short-term momentum to the upside. Now, how far could that momentum bring us? That could be limited to the 137, 138 area, which is now definitely a resistance level, just like this trend line coming in, and of course the top. So a break above that means that we would be bullish territory again. Obviously, we could see space up to 140, 143, and maybe higher, but that would be the minimum. If we don't break it and we get a move up just as a reject and then get rejected, actually we could see more downside maybe materialize, and we could see a retest of these 127.50 bottoms here, 128, and if we break that, even to the 121 area. All right, so that's the long-term perspective of this euro dollar. If we zoom out, you can see that triangle, for example, that we're in, these two green lines, we're pretty close to the top of the triangle. So that's why I was saying, if we break out, we maybe have that space to the upside. I should use green, in fact. But if we move up and respect that trend line, we could see a potential to really fall back to the bottom of that triangle. If not, at least to about this level, because that's a key support. Alrighty, so let's zoom in a bit, maybe to see what could happen in a more intermediate future. This is the very long-term analysis, of course. This is the daily chart. Daily chart, you can see there's still a key resistance level at 135.50. We should be aware of that. Let's zoom into the 4-hour chart. And you can see that this upside is moving pretty slowly, but then again, it could be a channel as well. So we can put that channel on a chart and keep an eye on this, because this channel could work pretty well and could keep moving like this and could be the basically the parameter of this upside, right? It could capture this upside movement pretty neatly, in fact. So we can keep those lines on, and if we then zoom into the 1 hour chart, last but not least, we can see that there is some stall right in here, so we can even add a trend line like that, make it a bit different color maybe. Alrighty. So any break above that magenta line, we can see a move up to 135.50, which is still a resistance. And if we break above 135.50, we could see upside maybe to 136.50, then 137, maybe to 138 at max before we really bump into that daily resistance. So this is looking pretty bullish. This 1 hour chart, you can see the higher highs and higher lows, the nice uptrend channel. We just have to be aware of that daily resistance right in here. Let's move over to the pound dollar. All right, this is the pound dollar weekly chart, and we can see a very bullish candle. Of course, there was a lot of downside momentum, in fact, and we did break temporarily the weekly support, but it didn't get any follow through, and we saw a close in reverse, in fact, and a very bullish close with a close very near the high. So there is definitely that short-term pressure, short-term momentum to the upside, but we have to be aware that despite that bullish candle, the pound dollar is still very close near this resistance. Anything below 162.50, to be specific, could easily run into rejection and downside continuation. All right, so once we break above 162.50 and especially 163.30, the bulls are back in control, and we can see that there's a potential to move upside to retest this top at 167. All right, and if we break 167, we have more space to the upside. If we don't break that top at 163.30 here, then that still could cause, and 162.50, that still could cause this pound dollar to fall and retest this bottom here at around 150. All right, so that's still in play, and despite this this currency moving up. And if we then zoom into the day chart, we can see that there is that downside momentum, and this move up could just be a hook back for more downside. Now that analysis would definitely not be in play once we push up above 162.50, but still be aware of the 163.30. If we then zoom into the 1 hour chart, we can see that there is a potential rising wedge on the pound dollar that could make this currency move down lower. Once it hits that potential resistance spot, you can see the angle is weaker and weaker, in fact. And if you then go to the 4 hour chart, or the day chart, in fact, and put this rising wedge in context by putting a fib on this downside, we can see that the 786 is pretty close by. Look at how much space is left. Not much, in fact. Just about 30 pips maybe before we move up and find a resistance to move down again. All right. So that upside, there is some upside potential, but that could be quickly be slammed into a resistance. We could still see continuation at the bottom of the trend line, so keep an eye if that bottom of the rising wedge will fall. Why is that so? Because the 786 might be a pause, but price could still move up to the 886 before it really maybe moves down lower. All right, so that's the pound USD. Let's take a look at the odd USD. Odd USD got a pretty sturdy rejection off the 50 fib, but it's still bouncing off this weekly support as well. So what is it, up or down? At the moment it's up, until we at least retest somewhere at the 96.50, 97 level, which could reject it down to the 85. But we can also see a higher correction to 92 before we see that downside. So that's basically what I'm waiting for the Aussie. Upside in the short term, but the long term, either a turn from the 50 or the 618 fib down to 85 potentially, but at least down to 90 for the moment. Let's go to the dollar yen. Dollar yen, in fact, showing a lot of potential to the upside if we analyze this currency, and it just goes to show what kind of, oh, this is the dollar Swissy, excuse me, here's the dollar yen. Alrighty, let me take a look at that weekly chart. There it is. You can see bullish close last week, bullish candle, in fact, breaking through the weekly triangle. Look at that. You see the green lines indicating the triangle, and the bullishness is breaking that triangle to the upside. Now we still need to clear important levels like 160 and 101.60 and 103.80. Those are major resistances still, and the bullish break to the upside is only confirmed when we clearly break through those levels. All right, because otherwise this could still be actually a bearish triangle with this downside, this being a triangle as a correction, and then we see one more downside like this down to 91.90 level before we see an upside continuation up to 110, 120, or 125. All right, those targets are in play as well if we break above 103.80. But that would be real confirmation, especially also 101.60. All right, those are important levels to break. The triangle itself is an important break, but not enough to assume that this is the bullish break already. Let's take a look at gold as well, XAU USD. And we can see that the purple lines indicating the triangle, and we are actually bouncing off a green line. If we break that green line, we could see a move back to the top of the triangle, maybe back down. A break above the triangle could indicate momentum possibility to 1520, and a break below 1250 we could see maybe a fall to retest the bottom at 1180. So that's what I'm looking at the bullish and bearish lines at the moment. Below right now until 1250 I would be careful of the bearishness, because we can see we are at a potential bouncing spot. All right, you can see that. All right, and so downside really only potentially possible for me or interesting below 1250, and bullishness really a break above the green line, the purple line, and then above the support for targets maybe up to 1520, but be careful of course at the top at 1440. Alrighty, that wraps up today. Thank you so much for joining us. Wish you all great trading this week, and hope to see you next week live or through this recording on the 25th of November. By the way, the live session will be from 8 a.m. From now on, and we'll have it every time on that time session. All right, so great trading, and talk to you soon.